There's some background information here on section 24 that will be very valuable as you study the section to understand some of the reasons why the Lord says what he says to Joseph Smith. Notice here what's happening. Joseph is going to take a trip from his home here in Harmony and go on up to the Joseph Knight Sr. home right here in Colesville, New York. There is a small branch of the church that's being organized there. Joseph had just held a great conference in June of 1830 that was very spiritual, and a number of persons up in Colesville wanted to be received by baptism. So Joseph's going to travel up there. Here's a little closer view. Here we have the Joseph Knight home. Also another important home here is the Josiah Stowell home, and I want you to pay attention to these two counties because they're going to come into play into why section 24 is received. At the end of June, on June 28th, 1830, Joseph Knight Sr. gets baptized, the man who lives right here in this home. With Joseph Knight Sr., his great friend who supported him and given him so many provisions. He takes the step of baptism, as do many other. 13 people get baptized up in Colesville that day, although a mob tried to break down. They had set up a dam the night before to dam up the water so they could have it deep enough to be baptized, and the mob came and broke it down. They fixed it the next day, but they still came and threatened the people. As it says here, 13 people still end up getting baptized by Oliver Cowdery. There's three important families here, the Knights, the Stowells, and the Pecks, and they start to form this nucleus of a branch of the church in Colesville. There's a local reverend, a Presbyterian reverend named John Shearer, who begins to lose some of his congregation over to Mormonism. He even attempts, by the way, to abduct Emily Coburn and stop her from her baptism, which luckily that doesn't happen. On June 30th, however, just a few days after these baptisms happen, some local antagonists actually send a constable, Ebenezer Hatch, to arrest Joseph Smith. And they bring a charge against him, and here are the charges, two of them: being a disorderly person and for preaching the Book of Mormon and setting the county in an uproar. Joseph is taken into custody by the constable, and here's how Joseph Knight Sr. remembers it. Quote, "But soon after the church began to grow, the people began to be angry and to persecute, and called them fools, and said they were deceived. And some of the vagabonds found they were there," meaning in Colesville, "and they made a catspaw of a young fellow by the name of Dr. Benton in Shenango County to swear out a warrant against Joseph, for, as they said, pretending to see underground," or in other words, that he's a seer. "A little clause they found in the York laws against such things. The officer came to my house near night and took him." Well, the trial's held the next day on July 1st. There's some interesting things that happen. The Stowells, who are local residents there, come to testify on Joseph's behalf. And after the court hears his case, they immediately acquit Joseph Smith of all the charges that were brought against him. However, notice this: immediately after being arrested, he is charged by a constable from the neighboring county, Broome County, just across the line, and charged again with the same charges. They take him before Joseph Noble, the Justice of the Peace. And Joseph Noble keeps notes of during this case, which now takes place on July 2nd. This is what he testifies when Josiah Stowell takes a stand again, asking about the Book of Mormon. In his notes, the Justice of the Peace says that Josiah Stowell testified, quote, "that Smith, the prisoner, went in the night and brought the Bible, as Smith said. Witness saw a corner of it." And by the way, this appears from some reports that as Joseph passed the plates through a window when he brought them home, that maybe a corner of the cloth fell back. And Josiah Stowell saw a corner of the gold plates. And look at this. It resembled a stone of greenish cast. Should judge it to have been about 1 foot square and 6 inches thick. He would not let it be seen by anyone. The Lord had commanded him not. It was unknown to Joseph Smith that witness saw a corner of the Bible, so-called, by Smith. Just an interesting account. Well, once again, this trial is acquitted. So Joseph's acquitted again in 2 days, 2 trials. These antagonists are frustrated by this, and so they want to resort to violence and harm Joseph physically. But luckily, with the help of the constable who arrests him, he escapes back to his home in Harmony, Pennsylvania. A few days later, Joseph and Oliver want to head back to Colesville to finish the confirmations of these people that they've baptized. The same mob finds out they're there and chases them all through the night. Joseph and Oliver have to run to the point of exhaustion to escape them and make it back to Harmony safe. When they get back to Harmony, Joseph writes in his journal, "Shortly after our return home from Colesville, we received the following commandments," which become Doctrine and Covenants 24 and 25. As you study Doctrine and Covenants 24, you'll see a lot of this historical context come through with the Lord working with Joseph in his worries. You're going to see his worries about these persecutions, worries about those, and the Lord's perspective on those who are trying to use the law to arrest him and hinder the work. You'll see Joseph's worries about the saints in Colesville and preaching and confirming them. You're also going to see some of Joseph's worries simply about, how do I take care of my family and run a church full time? How do I do this? As you study section 24, you'll see the Lord work with his young prophet in the midst of some difficult times. Good luck as you study this wonderful section of the Doctrine and Covenants.